What is going on, guys? Carter here with Edge Mindset. You know the drill. You know why we're here. We're carrying the torch forward every day, talking about knives because that's what we love. That's what we like to talk about, or at least that's what I like to talk about. And apparently some of you agree because you watch my video and you leave comments and stuff, and I am forever grateful for that. I couldn't do this without you, and I wouldn't want to anyway. So here we are talking about the one-track mind, Ire or Irie. I don't know. I've heard both. I always say Irie because somebody I used to work with had a son named Irie, and that's how they spelled and that's how they pronounced it. So it just sticks in my head. But a lot of people are like, no, it's Ire. It's Ire. So, okay, whatever. I may say it both ways. One-track mind, Ire. Little story behind this knife. So Steve, the owner and designer of this, reached out to me and said, hey, I've got this new knife. Do you want to check it out? I'll send it to you to review on the channel or to look at on the channel. I said, cool, that's awesome. It was the prototype and I got it and I did some content on it and I liked it enough that I put in for the pre-order. So this is paid for wholly by me. It was not discounted. It was not sent into the channel to try to elicit any sort of specific response. The only thing that I got is he threw in some black micarta scales to pay me for reviewing the knife, which I'm super grateful for, even though I've reinstalled the carbon fiber on here. I go back and forth which one I like. So very kind of cool knife. There is a little bit of, it is a little derivative of the MSI from Microtech. And it's funny because I didn't make that connection for a long time. But you can see how, there's some similarities there. Overall size as well, especially the blade. And we'll do a comparison a little bit here in a minute. Let's get some basic specs out of the way so that you at least kind of know what you might be getting into if you want to check out this knife. As you can imagine, this is a One Track Mind is a U.S. company. And it is designed in the U.S., but it is outsourced to China for manufacture. The specific OEM is Kunwu on this one, which they do a very good job. 3.5-inch blade, depending on where you measure it from. You could do 3.25 if you want to go down to here. But if you go up to the tippy toppest most point of where the scale starts, it's 3.5, a little bit over 3.5. Overall length is, what is it? 8.25. Almost 8.5, somewhere around there. You get the general idea. I'll post the actual specs, the manufacturer specs down below, but that gives you an idea of what you are kind of looking at. And then if we want to go for weight, is this thing dead? No, I have had this for so long. Do you ever have things where you forget how long you've had them and then you go back to 4.6 ounces? So pretty dang light. Some of that is due to the carbon fiber going on there. You go back, for me, I go back to some old videos. I don't know, I was looking for something. I started looking at some old videos on my channel and I saw this in a video from 10 years ago and I didn't think I had that long. I have gone through multiple moves with this weigher here, scale. And it's not exactly an expensive, it's a very cheap one. You think I would have just gotten rid of it and replaced it by now. Let's do some size comparisons here. Here it is next to a Chubb OTF. I don't know, guys. I struggle when knife reviewers do these comparisons. It seems like it's just an excuse to draw out the video. And so what I like to do is just do random knives, mainly just to show off what else I have around the table. So here we have a custom SNG from Strider Knives, mixed Strider right here. Really love this one. Let's do Blue Label Redención from Chavez Knives right there. Very, very cool. We already did the MSI. What else do I got around here? Ooh, I've got the Mermaid knife. Here it is compared to the Mermaid knife. For your money, there's no better value than the Mermaid knife. I kid, don't take that serious. It's a joke knife. It's a joke knife, but I needed a joke knife. So there we go with size comparisons. Now, let's run through some of the different materials and things like that we have going on. Boom! There are the values right there. As you can see, 20 CV on the blade steel, which is an interesting choice because typically on outsourced knives, you see M390 over 20 CV. Very, very similar steels depending on who you ask. Some people will say they're the exact same, 20CV and M390. Some people say 20CV has a slight, no pun intended, edge over M390. I've noticed no difference between the two, so I consider them essentially the same, and it just comes down to quality and heat treat of that particular steel. But that's what it is right there. I believe that's 10/24 on the date. I could be wrong. It's a little scuffed up there. Carbon fiber handle, DLC on the blade and the hardware, and then it's signed by Steve right there, Steve Joyce. Very, very cool. Serial number 67 of 170, which is okay. Okay, that is fine. So what do we have here? It is a large slicey knife, which is very cool. And I've mentioned this on all the times that I've talked about this knife. The fact that he went for the big size knife is pretty dang cool. Most companies, especially in this space, right, kind of the newer modern knives, are going for smaller, thin, light, and slicey, and fidgety. Those are like the main factors that things are being judged against, right? This one hits on all of them except for small. It's, it's pretty big. It is a big knife. You got this nice reverse tanto, sheep's foot, whatever you want to call it, man. People get so angry when you try to say what kind of blade shape it is, especially if there's some ambiguity on it. Some people say there's no such thing as a reverse tanto. I don't know. You can see with your eyes what the blade shape is. So what we call it is somewhat arbitrary. In visual form, entertainment, and information, this isn't written where you are taking my words, right? You can see the blade. So if I say something that doesn't agree with what you think the blade is, it doesn't matter because you can see what it is right there. Anyways, really nice consistency on the sharpening. Kunwu does a really good job. It is really thin behind the edge. It is slicer. It is of that world. It is a slicer knife. 2 modes of deployment. Big cutout right here. And the Thumbstuds. I really like the Thumbstuds. That is what I use. Coming down here, it's hit or miss on if I'm able to kind of even use that. But the Thumbstuds are money. They are nice and rounded. You can see right there. They've even got a little bit of detail on there. If you want to be that guy, you could put some O-rings around there. For some reason, that's a contention in the knife world. If you put O-rings around your Thumbstuds, if they have like that little groove right there, some people get really upset by that. I don't know why, but they seem to, especially on Dozier knives. That is a big, big problem. Got a swedge on the top there, which is kind of a cool detail considering you don't have a lot of real estate there. Got some jimping that runs all the way up to that poon right there. So you can put your thumb on the poon, but you get a nice grip on that poon as well. Very good jimping on there. No complaints at all whatsoever. You got a big choil right here. You can put your finger on. No issues of me cutting myself. If you've got really big, thick sausage fingers, you might have a problem. But what can you do? You make that choil too big, people get mad. You make it too small, sausage finger guys get mad. You're always making somebody mad. Your choice here is to try to make the least amount of people mad and the most amount of people happy. That's one thing I've learned with running this channel. I cannot make everybody happy. People are always going to be upset. I just have to navigate those waters and make the fewest amount of people upset as I possibly can. I forgot, deployment method. You've got a front flipper right there. Works very, very well. I can even do the index. So if Mr. Mindset can do an index flip, you know that flipper is set up well because I am terrible at doing the index flip. So done very, very well. You get a lot of good leverage on there. And of course, you've got the really good jimping. So you're not slipping off there. No issues there. Let's move on to this really cool handle. I love this pivot. It is so cool. It is contoured to match the bolsters here. And of course it is DLC'd. You've got a couple different tones going on. You can see how that's contoured with that thick titanium right there. And then you've got, single piece scale. So kind of faux bolsters, right? Because these are not separate pieces. They are part of the whole handle. So they've milled out this section here for the different scales. And then those connect into this single piece. What is the benefit of that? Less parts. Less things to move around, less things to be lost. You don't have any screws holding these bolsters on. It's all a single piece, which is very, very cool. These scales can come off, and it is still a 100% functional knife because the screws actually holding this thing together are underneath this scale here. You can see how clean all the gaps are. There's no ledges. It's very, very smooth. Done very, very well. Kunwu knows what's up. Very nice. Look how clean that work is. Very good. Very good. Good job, Kunwu. Backspacer, which is really awesome. It's radiused, and then it's got gear pattern in there. Adds a little extra dimension than if it was just flat or if it sat like proud. So done very, very well. Looks very cool. Helps protect you against getting your finger in there, cutting yourself potentially, which I don't think is an issue. Looks like the blade is far enough in there. I don't think you can really get in there and cause any problems. No lanyard hole. So if you are a lanyard fan, you are out of luck, although they are a rare breed nowadays. Not many people into the lanyards. Reversible milled titanium pocket clip, which is done very well. Great retention. It's easy to get in and out of the pocket. Exquisitely done. This is about how deep it would sit in your pocket. So for me, I like it. Some people like it deeper, but this just doesn't have the equipment to go any deeper, if you know what I'm saying. So that's about what you're looking at, which I really, really like. It is reversible, and then you've got a plug kind of on this side to kind of keep it nice and clean and easy. Running on bearings. Action is standard bearing action. The lock bar is tuned very, very well. Detent is nice and strong, but it is not difficult whatsoever to disengage this thing. The detent ramp is nice and short. And then I believe, do we have an actual ramp in here, or is it just, I don't see one, but it feels like there is. Or maybe it's just that this lock bar here, this bolster lock, if you want to call it that, with that lock bar insert, I don't know if I mentioned that, if it's just tuned so well that it just glides right on there. No detent lash, nothing like that. It's all nice and centered. Very well done knife. Now, what would you use this for other than general EDC tasks? This is a workhorse. Like, you can really get up on this handle. You've got this nice, look at that light curve right there. It's not a Warncliffe, but it's real close with this nice detailed tip right here. You can get in, do all kinds of work. You can put your finger up there. You can do pinch grip on this baby. Look at that. Look at that. Look, you can pinch all the way up to the top. You could do open heart surgery with the tip of this thing. I kid. Don't do that. Don't open anybody up and start hacking apart their heart. That is no good. You're going to get in trouble, harm yourself and harm others. Don't do that. The DLC on this baby is out frickin' standing. I really, really like it. Now let's compare it to the MSI. It is kind of interesting how kind of similar it is, right? This one is, it's more geared towards slicing. It's got thinner blade stock overall, and it's a much taller blade, so you get way thinner behind the edge. But just some of the design language, you can see here, similar blade shape, similar grinds. This one even has a swedge. It just kind of extends all the way to the back, whereas this one stops here and more of a more obvious poon, even though this technically kind of is a poon here as well. No thumb stud on this one. Similar opening hole. It's just kind of stretched out. And then the overall size is very similar as well. Handle shape is ballparkish, right? This one's different the way it puts this choil up here and then curves back here, whereas this has a really big choil for 2 fingers up here. But yeah, quite similar. But of course, this is a frame lock or a bolster lock, and this one is the ram lock. So completely different locking mechanism. This one has a deep carry bent steel pocket clip. This one has a milled pocket clip. But this one is made in the US, and this one is made overseas. The main thing, though, is depending on which version you get, the MSI is potentially almost half the cost. If you get the polymer version of the MSI, now keep in mind, this MSI is kind of like the flagship affordable knife from Microtech, right? So I think it's somewhat artificially lowered because they just wanted to provide a knife that's for budget-oriented people. And so I think they're probably taking a bit of a bigger hit on this knife. I'm not saying they're not making money, but they're just not making as much money as they do on other knives in order to keep this price low. Because on this MSI, and this has aftermarket titanium scale, so ignore that. This MSI really doesn't take any hits in terms of quality. Still has the same M390 MK steel, ram lock. All the stuff is the same as the other knives, but it is their least expensive manual knife that they offer. But it is pretty crazy, made in the USA, and this one is made overseas. The retail on this is $290 to $310, I believe, depending on the configuration you get. The DLC is the most expensive version, I believe, at time of shooting this video. Now, I'm not sure if they have any more in stock. I will check on that before I upload this video. Like a lot of these overseas OEM knives from small makers, they have to commission a certain batch, and then they try to pre-sell as much as they can, and then they typically will have extras that they'll throw on the site. But unfortunately, it's not something they can quickly fulfill if there's more demand, right? You can't just call Kunwu and say, hey, give me 50 more knives, right? It's a big deal to do another run of these knives, and Kunwu, as well as other OEM manufacturers, are very busy with their own knives, other people's knives, and so it can take a long time to turn these around, which is something that U.S. does have over overseas manufacturing, right? It's very difficult for U.S. manufacturers to compete with the very inexpensive manufacturing and parts of overseas. But one thing that U.S. manufacturing tends to have over overseas manufacturing is how quickly they can turn around new knives, how quickly they can do different versions, special editions. You know, if there's more demand, they can bump things around and say, whoa, these MSIs are really flying off the shelf. We were going to do some stitches, but you know what? Let's do another round of MSIs instead. Let's keep that going. And they can crank out more knives pretty quickly compared to having to work out another contract deal with an OEM and get those manufactured, fit into the schedule, that kind of thing. Anyways, I'm going off on a tangent. What do you guys think of the ire from One Track Mind? I think it's pretty cool. It does something a little bit different than a lot of the other knives coming out in a similar fashion. I think it looks cool. It's a very handsome looking knife, very usable, high quality, good price. So comment down below what you think of this knife. Thanks for hanging out. Really appreciate you. I'll catch you on the next video.